Welcome to Matt Stories. Please don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when the next story is out. Mrs. Okoro was there every step of the way, offering her guidance and wisdom whenever Amara needed it. She had always been a steady presence in Amara's life, but now, as her stepmother, she was a mentor and confidant. There were moments when Amara felt the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders, when the pressure of living up to her father's legacy seemed too much to bear. On those days, Mrs. Okoro would remind her that it wasn't about perfection, but about progress. She would tell Amara to trust her instincts and always stay true to her values. Leadership isn't about commanding others, Mrs. Okoro would say. It's about inspiring them to believe in the vision you're creating. You already have that in you. Amara found herself beginning to take on more significant challenges. She started to make decisions that affected the future of the company, and her unique vision began to emerge. She introduced new initiatives aimed at empowering the younger generation within the company, fostering innovation, and improving the welfare of employees. She believed in the power of collaboration and open communication, and she made it her mission to create an environment where everyone felt heard and valued. Slowly, the culture within the company began to shift, and the employees, who had once seen her as just a figurehead, now admired her leadership. However, not everyone was on board with the changes. Some senior executives, who had been loyal to her father for years, were skeptical of Amara's leadership. They saw her as inexperienced, as the child of the patriarch who was being thrust into a position she wasn't ready for. There were whispers behind closed doors, and some even tried to undermine her authority. But Amara was no longer the angry, isolated girl she had once been. She had learned to trust herself, and when the challenges came, she faced them head-on. In one particularly tense board meeting, Amara was presented with a decision that could impact the company's future. There were disagreements about the direction the company should take, and some executives were openly critical of her vision. They questioned her ability to lead, citing her lack of experience, but instead of backing down, Amara stood tall. She looked each of them in the eye and calmly explained her vision for the company's growth. She spoke about the importance of innovation, of adapting to the changing times, and of creating an environment where everyone could thrive. She was confident, poised, and unshaken. When the meeting ended, there was a silence in the room. Amara had won the respect by standing firm in her beliefs and showing that she had the strength and vision to lead. It wasn't the kind of victory that could be measured in applause, but it was one that solidified her place as the leader. At home, Chief Okoro watched with pride as his daughter navigated the complexities of leadership. He knew that he had made the right decision in handing over the reins to her. His trust in her was not misplaced. He had always seen the potential in Amara, even when she had struggled to see it in herself. Now, watching her rise to the occasion, he knew that she was exactly the person the company needed to carry it into the future. "I'm proud of you, Amara," he told her one evening, after she had made another tough decision that would shape the company's future. "You've become everything I hoped you would be, and more. I have no doubt that you will take this company to new heights." Amara felt a sense of warmth at her father's words. For years, she had sought his approval, had fought for his love and respect. But now, as she looked at him, she realized that she had earned it, not through grand gestures or rebellion, but through her own growth, her own strength, and her ability to rise above her past. She had proven to herself and to her father that she was capable of achieving greatness on her own terms. But despite the success she was finding in her professional life, Amara still struggled with the remnants of her personal battles. The loss of her mother continued to haunt her, and there were days when the weight of it seemed unbearable. She would find herself walking through the garden, her thoughts drifting back to the memories of her mother, the times they had shared, and the love that had been lost. It was during these moments that she missed her mother most deeply, when the pain of her absence felt like a physical ache in her chest. Mrs. Okoro, sensing her daughter's pain, came to her one evening just as the sun was setting. "I know it's hard, Amara," she said, sitting beside her on the garden bench, "and I know you'll always miss her. But you're allowed to live your life. You don't have to carry that pain forever. Your mother would want you to be happy, to find peace. And I'll be here every step of the way to help you." Amara looked at her stepmother, her heart full of gratitude. For so long she had rejected the idea of anyone else taking her mother's place. But now she saw that Mrs. Okoro wasn't trying to replace her mother, She was simply offering her love and support, helping Amara heal in a way that no one else could. And for that, Amara was beginning to understand. She would forever be grateful. Amara's life, once clouded with anger and rejection, was now a tapestry of achievements and hard-earned relationships. With each passing day, she grew more comfortable in her leadership role. The company that had once seemed like a distant, cold empire had now become a reflection of her vision. She pushed for sustainable practices, supported women in the workforce, and created scholarship programs for young students aspiring to enter the corporate world. She was no longer just the daughter of a billionaire. She was a respected CEO, a woman with a purpose. However, the journey was far from smooth. There were still moments when Amara's past would rise up, uninvited to challenge her. In one of her first public speeches as CEO, an influential journalist, known for his hard-hitting questions, asked her about her relationship with her stepmother. The question was pointed, clearly designed to provoke her. The audience fell silent, waiting for Amara's response. Amara paused for a moment, feeling the familiar sting of the question. In the past, such a question would have sent her into a spiral of anger and defensiveness. But this time, something was different. She took a deep breath and, with unwavering confidence, responded, "My relationship with my stepmother is one of growth, understanding, and respect. We've had our challenges, but we're a family. And family means learning from each other, supporting each other, and loving each other, no matter the circumstances." Her voice was strong, her words measured. It wasn't the answer anyone had expected, but it was the truth. The audience, impressed by her poise and maturity, erupted into applause. It wasn't just about the business anymore. Amara had shown them something deeper, a strength that came from within. It wasn't about the wealth or the power she had inherited. It was about who she had become. Back at the mansion, Chief Okoro watched the broadcast with pride. He had always believed that Amara had the potential to be more than just a figurehead. Now he was witnessing the culmination of years of sacrifice and struggle. His daughter had stepped into her own. Mrs. Okoro, too, smiled as she watched Amara speak with such conviction. "She's become the woman I always knew she could be," Mrs. Okoro said softly, her voice filled with affection. But as the months passed, Amara began to feel the weight of her responsibilities more than ever. The demands of running a large corporation left her little time for herself. She was constantly in meetings, traveling for business, and handling crises. Her personal life seemed to slip further into the background, and even though she had grown close to her family, she still felt a sense of loneliness that came from the pressure of maintaining such a high profile. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Amara sat in her office, staring out at the city lights below. She had made incredible strides in her career, but there were times when the loneliness felt overwhelming. She missed the days when her biggest worry was what to wear to a party or which movie to watch. Now every decision carried the weight of the company and its future. It was then that Mrs. Okoro, ever perceptive, knocked on her office door. "Can I come in?" she asked, poking her head around the corner. Amara smiled, a little surprised. "Of course, Mom." Mrs. Okoro entered the room, her presence as comforting as always. She sat down beside Amara, her gaze soft but knowing. "I can see the toll it's taking on you, Amara," she said gently. "The work, the pressure. I know you feel like you have to carry everything on your shoulders, but you don't. You don't have to do it all alone." Amara sighed, running a hand through her hair. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I'm trying to prove myself, but it's so exhausting. I don't know how to balance it all." Miss Okoro nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's okay to take a step back sometimes. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You've done more than enough, Amara. You've already proven yourself. But now it's time to focus on you. Take time to rest, to rediscover the things that bring you joy. It's not a weakness to ask for help, you know." Amara listened carefully, the weight of her stepmother's words sinking in. For so long, she had been running on autopilot, pushing herself to the limit because she feared that slowing down would make her seem weak, unworthy of the success she had achieved. But now, she realized that true strength wasn't about constantly proving herself. It was about knowing when to pause, when to breathe, and when to lean on others. The next day, Amara took her stepmother's advice to heart. She called a meeting with her top executives, not to discuss business, but to open up about her own struggles. She shared her feelings of exhaustion and her fear of burnout. She asked them to help lighten her load, to take on more responsibilities so that she could focus on maintaining her well-being. To her surprise, her team was more than willing to step up. They admired her vulnerability, and it only deepened their respect for her as a leader. Amara also made a decision to take some time off. It wasn't going to be a long break, but it would be enough for her to recharge and reconnect with herself. She planned a short trip to her hometown in Enugu to visit the places that had shaped her childhood. It had been years since she had returned, and the thought of going back to her roots brought a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. As she walked through the familiar streets of Enugu, Amara felt a deep sense of nostalgia. She visited her mother's grave, standing in silence for a few moments, reflecting on everything that had brought her to this point. It was a quiet, cathartic moment. Her mother's spirit still lingered in her heart, but Amara no longer felt burdened by the loss. She had come to terms with it, had found a way to carry her mother's memory without it weighing her down. During her trip, Amara reconnected with old friends and spent time with family. She rediscovered the joy of simple moments, laughter, shared meals, and the beauty of just being present. It was a reminder that, despite the demands of her career, there was more to life than success and achievement. There was love, connection, and a sense of belonging that couldn't be measured in boardrooms. When Amara returned to Lagos, she felt renewed. The break had given her the clarity she needed to approach her work with fresh energy and a balanced perspective. She resumed her duties at the company with a newfound sense of purpose, knowing that it wasn't about doing everything, it was about doing what truly mattered and finding harmony in all aspects of her life. Amara's newfound sense of balance brought clarity to her life in ways she hadn't expected. As the weeks passed, she became more attuned to the needs of her family, her company, and herself. Her leadership at the helm of the Okoro Empire grew even stronger, but now it was guided by wisdom rather than pressure. She no longer felt the need to prove herself to anyone. The fears that once held her back, of failure, of being misunderstood, had begun to dissipate. One afternoon, Amara stood at the window of her office, looking out over the Lagos skyline. The city was bustling, a living, breathing entity full of energy, promise, and life. And for the first time in years, Amara felt at peace with herself and the world. She wasn't just the daughter of Chief Okoro anymore, or the young woman who had struggled with loss, rejection, and anger. She was Amara Okoro, a woman who had found her place in the world and who knew her worth, not because of her inheritance, but because of the person she had become. That evening, as the sun set behind the towering buildings of Lagos, Amara sat down for a family dinner. Chief Okoro, Mrs. Okoro, and even a few close friends gathered around the table, their laughter filling the room. The meal was simple, but the joy that radiated from the group was anything but. Amara had learned the value of these moments, of connection, love, and the importance of grounding herself in what truly mattered. "You come a long way, my daughter," Chief Okoro said, his voice filled with pride as he raised a glass in her honor. "I've watched you grow into a woman who not only leads with strength, but with kindness. You make me proud every day." Amara's heart swelled with emotion at her father's words. She had spent so many years trying to prove herself to him, but now she realized that his pride in her was not a result of her accomplishments, but of her character. It was a moment that filled her with a deep sense of fulfillment. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," Amara said, her voice thick with gratitude as she looked at both her father and Mrs. Okoro. "Your love and support have made all the difference in the world." Mrs. Okoro, who had always been a quiet presence in the background, smiled warmly. "And you've given us the greatest gift of all, Amara, your heart. You've taught us what it means to grow, to forgive, and to love without condition." Amara looked around the table, her gaze softening as she saw the people who had stood by her through every challenge, every moment of doubt, and every triumph. She realized that her journey had never been about the accolades or the power. It had always been about the relationships she had built, the people who had believed in her even when she had doubted herself, and the love that had shaped her into the woman she was now. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted to lighter topics, memories from their childhood, funny anecdotes, and plans for the future. But Amara's mind drifted to one final thought. The future was hers to create, and she no longer had to do it alone. She had a family who would stand by her, a team of executives who respected her vision, and a life ahead of her that was rich with potential. The next day, Amara took a significant step, one that would change the course of the company for good. She announced a new initiative within the Okoro Empire, one that reflected her commitment to social responsibility and sustainable growth. The project was ambitious, aiming to create a positive impact on communities across Nigeria with a focus on education, healthcare, and environmental sustainability. It was her vision for a future that was not only profitable, but also ethical and inclusive. As Amara stood before a crowd of investors and journalists, her voice unwavering as she outlined the plan, she felt a surge of excitement. This was the legacy she wanted to build, one that would carry her father's name but also make a difference in the world. Her heart swelled with pride as she saw the support in the eyes of the people around her. She wasn't just leading a company anymore, she was leading a movement, one that would change the lives of countless people. In the days that followed, the response to Amara's initiative was overwhelmingly positive. The company's stocks rose, the media praised her for her bold vision, and new partnerships were formed with global organizations that shared her commitment to social good. But what truly mattered to Amara was the sense of purpose she felt. She had always known that she wanted to leave a lasting impact, but now she was actively working toward it. She was creating something that would outlast her, a legacy of kindness, integrity, and social responsibility. In the midst of all this, Amara's relationship with Mrs. Okoro continued to flourish. The two women, who had once struggled to understand each other, now found common ground in their shared goals and love for Amara's father. The tension that had once been between them was now replaced with a deep sense of respect and admiration. Mrs. Okoro had become not just a stepmother, but a trusted ally, and Amara knew that their bond was unbreakable. And so, as the months went by, Amara's life unfolded like a beautiful, complex story. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt, but there was also an unwavering sense of peace. She had learned that true strength didn't come from power or control, but from the ability to love and be loved, to rise after every fall, and to never give up on the journey. Amara had come full circle. From a young woman who felt abandoned and angry, to a powerful CEO who knew her worth, she had built a life that was hers, and hers alone. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that she would continue to grow, to lead with love, and to make a difference in the world, one step at a time. Did you enjoy this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.